Hello everyone, my name's Pete and I don't like MMOs. And with that in mind, it's important to take everything I'm about to say with a pint of salt. I've been playing MMOs for a while now in an effort to dislike them honestly rather than ignorantly, and I'm happy to tell you that I've successfully confused my own opinion by now. This video is brought to you by these ever so kind Patreon supporters. The link for this is in the description if you're looking for new places to waste your money. Today I'm not doing a first impression. This time I want to talk to you about two games I've already tried and something that I found quite interesting about them. Given that I used to assume all MMOs are the same, I've already experienced way more variety than I expected. So when two MMOs set in the same franchise turned out to be so different, my surprise was amplified somewhat. Neverwinter and Dungeons & Dragons Online stand out already for me as positive experiences, but each for different reasons. And I think the fact that they both did different things correctly is what makes them stand out even more. This is getting confusing for me to express, so let's take some time to break down what I mean. If you haven't already watched my first impressions for either of these games, it might be a good idea to do so and then come back. You'll find the links in the description. I'm going to compare one quest from each game now, and we'll take it one game at a time. So picking up from where I left off in D&D Online was a little jarring at first, and I had to read my quest log to remember what had happened and where to go. Fortunately for me, the sense of adventure that this game inspires was still effective on me, and I was quite happy to be a little bit lost for a while and find my footing. Rather conversely, coming back to Neverwinter was a very fast experience, as the ever-present golden line of sure progress pointed me exactly where I needed to be. This golden line is both a good and bad thing, but I'll get to that later. After some time wandering around Korthos Island, I finally found my destination, which marks the climax of the opening questline. I enter Misery's Peak to find a full adventuring party in attendance, with Lars Hayton ready to brief us on our task. The party, I soon realise, are the same group I encountered back when I was shipwrecked at the beginning, and they seem very pleased to see me. Lars explains to me that killing the Mind Flayer that hides somewhere in these caves will see off the Devourer cult and the dragon. The departure of these will also put a stop to the Sahos, the fishmen plaguing the people here. My character, being smarter than myself, asks how a dragon can be controlled by a Mind Flayer, as they're usually resistant to such magic. Lars explains that the Mind Flayer is using an ancient quarry or quarry? I'm not sure. An ancient artifact to amplify his magic. With that explained, I'm told that the three others will go in one direction and make lots of noise while I go in another to find and do something about this artifact. Lars lowers the barriers to our respective pathways and I make my way through a winding corridor littered with various undead. I find myself in a larger room at the end, with several levels and a locked door. I'm told nothing and must instead look around and find out what to do, and I'm completely okay with this. There's not a great deal to it. All I need to do is look around for pressure plates to stand on to activate the glowing runes on the doors. These doors then lead to switches that activate the main door out of the cave. There are enemies scattered about this cave too, but there's nothing stressful about it, and I actually enjoyed the exploration that was encouraged. The number of enemies to encounter made the few rest shrines useful, and the overall atmosphere just felt nice. Navigating the narrow walkways got me a little lost and confused at times, but that was all part of the experience. After this, I follow another narrow corridor to another stone door. Opening this one, however, led to a genuine oh crap moment. One of the best part of DDO's low damage and health numbers is that it gives you a good idea of what you can and can't handle based on relatable figures. So whilst I understand that I've gained some strength and my damage has increased, I also understand that opening a door and finding a full-grown dragon behind it means I'm probably going to die. Luckily it's sleeping, so maybe I can get past it. Unfortunately, this is when the party decide to make noise and the mad lads challenge it to a fist fight. I try to help, but it looks like I can't, so I bravely run away and escape through a door on the other side. At the end of another passage, I take a quick rest and continue to battle my way through cultists. Upon opening another door, I see one of the coolest level design ideas ever, as the party is being chased by the dragon beneath the sheet of ice I'm walking on. Another signal crystal door bars my path and I set about finding switches, now grateful that the others chose to fight the dragon for me. Gaining entry to the next room rewards me with seeing the last moments of some cultists as they sacrifice themselves to summon an ice flenser, which looked and sounded a lot tougher than it was. That dispatched, I stop and take notes and get ambushed by more cultists, and then in the next corridor I have to disable another barrier with pressure plates and I accidentally miss one and confuse myself, which admittedly isn't hard. When this barrier dissolves, I open the door to another oh crap moment as I find myself facing the dragon again, with the Mind Flayer in front of it. I assume my companions have been eaten and I'm pointing towards the big green crystal which happens to be the artifact being used to control the dragon. I smash it and the rather irritated dragon defeats its captor. Then the party shows up rather unscathed to complain that I got the easy job, and after watching them run from the dragon I sort of agree. Large congratulates me and himself on our success and tells me where I can find more adventures should I choose to do so, and I definitely will. However, this particular sequence is what I wanted you to see for a comparison. A few notes I made include the lack of a cutscene of any sort, no dramatic dialogue, and not even a really memorable piece of music, and despite that, I had a good time going through what felt like a competently designed set piece that rounded off what little story I've been told so far. And now we switch to Neverwinter. To fill you in on what's happened so far, the first impression video finished on this graveyard. There's been some Therian wizards around raising the dead to aid Valindra, who's the established bad guy for the game so far, and we're trying to thwart the plans. There's also a group called the Cult of the Dragon knocking about, and the Harpers are concerned, so we're investigating. Taking our quests from Harperwindle and a scholar named Christopher Chettlebell, I've been sent around to various parts of the graveyard to defeat cultists and necromancers, whilst recovering and aiding Chettlebell's research and team. The story revealed a plot to release a long-sealed dragon from captivity to aid Valindra in a battle against Neverwinter, and I'm told to go and do something about that. That something involves breaking the seals that hold the dragon, and I'm wondering why I'd want to do that. Surely letting it out whether Valindra is around or not is a bad idea. Either way, this is where the golden quest line of truth is pointing me, and I will be a good boy and obey. Arriving at my destination, I find myself taking in the wonderful visuals that can be found in this game, like this tomb approach with its statues lining the path. There are some examples of less competent level design, but I'll cover those some other time. This tomb is where our real quest sequence will begin, at least after I reconnect. Apparently, this was a gate and not a door, as I'm still outside, and I need to battle my way through blobs of zombies to reach the real door, which is being guarded by a red wizard who's rather squishy. I get a chest of junk for my trouble and head on into the clockwork tomb. There were cool clunking noises heard from outside it, but when I got in, there were no such noises, nor an obvious cause for what I heard, which I found a bit odd. What follows is a simple go here, go there exercise, precisely mapped out by the sparkly line of wisdom, and without explanation or real need for explanation as to why I'm setting these clocks to specific hours. One can safely assume that it's a combination lock of sorts, but what could have been a puzzle, on even the most basic of levels, has been boiled down to a mindless connect the dots activity interspersed with low impact combat. Not that the combat isn't fun, it's one of the major strengths of the game, but it feels like the enemy placement is random and they're simply there to just pad out the tasks. Once all 5 clocks are set, I descend into a room with fantastic mood lighting to answer the question of time, which sounds really spooky and ominous, but it's actually just a really simple riddle that leads to more fighting. After said fighting, I enter a room with a short cutscene in which I find Valindra yelling about the right of the Dracolich and celebrating that she has a new dragon. She greets me rather courteously, remembering our previous encounter and even asking about the health of my friends, which makes her the single most polite character I've met in the entire game. And now, let's play a game of what happens next. I got to the end of the tomb, Valindra beat me there is in fact a dragon here, so what sort of final encounter will this be? What have we been building up to this whole time? That's right, a giant spider boss battle. I found myself reasonably confused at this subversion of expectations. On the one hand, it's kinda cool to know that we failed, because not every quest should have a happy ending. But on the other hand, why set up all that drama with the dragon cult and the red wizard activity to have my final showdown with an unrelated spider? The fight itself devolved into me running into a circle to avoid taking damage while taking pot shots and casting my abilities on cooldown. And while it took a while, it was hardly engaging. There were no stages, no hidden surprises, just a test of patience. The spider dies and I get a shortcut out, which is very confusing considering where this door leads to. And I head back to Chettlebell and Harperwindle, both of whom seem pleased that the worst possible outcome, that being Valindra getting control of a dragon, is what we have left to deal with. I get a level up and some new equipment, and I'm told that Valindra is no longer a threat in Neverdeath, which, while technically true, is only because she was successful in getting exactly what she wanted from here. And this concludes the story in this section, and it does not feel satisfying. A few of my notes from here include that there was a cutscene and the music was suitably dramatic, but my overall experience felt a bit clunky and artificially lengthened by meaningless fighting. The DDO experience felt like an adventure. I needed to figure some things out. Sure, they weren't difficult things, but I had to explore and find switches and understand why I was pressing them. The Neverwinter experience felt like an underwhelming roller coaster, one that runs indoors and it's not that fast, but they play loud music and flash lights at you to distract you from that. I had fun playing, but it doesn't feel as well crafted somehow. You can make of this comparison what you will. I think both quests are fine, and the appeal of each is a matter of preference rather than which is better. But now I want to look at the other key gameplay elements in a bit more detail. I will state that I've done 0 group content in these so far, so I can't compare or even comment on that. The next point I had in my notes is experience points, or in the case of Neverwinter, the lack of them. DDO follows a very traditional experience point leveling system. You gain levels through defeating enemies and completing quests. Neverwinter has levels that are tied intrinsically to progression in the story, meaning you'll often see a level increase as a quest reward. Max level is 20, and this reportedly takes about 10 hours to complete, and there appears to be no alternative for gaining levels. I checked to see if I could queue for a dungeon, to be told my item level isn't high enough, and I'm 12,000 levels beneath the requirement. This means I'm effectively locked out of group content until I've reached max level. I have a few issues with this, like the fact that I have no idea what I'm doing in a group until I reach a point where all that's left from me is working in a group. Unless the adventures continue after hitting max level, of course. DDO will let me join a party and complete group content from as early as Korthos Island, which is effectively the tutorial. And whilst I've chosen not to complete any of this, it's better to know that I've got the option there. The decision to tie levels to story progression in Neverwinter has a few other downsides. For example, a lot of the time you'll find yourself battling blobs of enemies, and since they don't drop anything meaningful or provide anything towards your level, they feel like an unnecessary barrier when trying to advance. And that's without mentioning the actual impact of the story. The quests are given in neat little chunks of 3 or 4 which take place in a small area and can be handily completed and turned in batches. Given that the action is effectively then punctuated by mediocre text dumps, I found myself just clicking buttons to accept and moving back and forth until I was pointed to the next quest giver and becoming more and more detached from the world. My experience in DDO is quite the opposite. I'm not being guided by anything other than my ability to read and desire to explore. And whilst functionally I'm doing the same fighting, collecting and turning in quests, the feeling is way more relaxed and has a certain freedom to it. When I started making this video, I felt pretty good about both games, but on closer inspection, I can see which one I prefer. The combat and controls are a lot clunkier in DDO, taking on more than 3 enemies can be dangerous at a low level, and I have less tools at my disposal, at least at early levels. But I think I'll take that over the alternative of follow the golden line forever. It's a good thing the combat is so much fun in Neverwinter, or I wouldn't really give it many plus points. In conclusion, I thought these games would be almost identical before starting any of them, but in fact they are worlds apart. I also thought I liked them equally, but it turns out I like DDO more. I also learned that I'm going to need to dive deeper to answer my initial question on whether or not any of these are worth my time. So for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.